Island getaways are the dream. Crystal clear waters, soft white sand, and the kind of peace that makes you forget the rest of the world exists. But here's the brutal truth. Some of the most stunning islands on Earth are on borrowed time. Rising seas, raging storms, and a planet that's heating up fast are swallowing these paradises inch by inch every single day. Places like the Maldives, Seychelles, and Kiribati might not even be around for the next generation to visit. Some are already losing land, others are fighting to survive. And the super scariest thing? The clock is ticking way faster than we thought. So, join us on this journey to discover the 15 islands that might not make it to the next century. And if you haven't had the chance to visit them yet, maybe it's time to book that ticket before Mother Nature takes them away forever. Let's start off with number 15, Solomon Islands. The Solomon Islands, a scattered chain of nearly 1,000 islands in the South Pacific, aren't just losing land. They're losing history, homes, and entire ways of life. Since 1993, sea levels here have been rising at an alarming 8 millimeters per year, swallowing coastlines faster than the islanders can adapt. The provincial capital, Choiseul, sits a mere 6.6 feet above sea level, and officials are already planning a mass relocation before it's too late. The evidence isn't just theoretical, it's already in the water. A 2016 study published in Environmental Research Letters confirmed that 5 entire reef islands have vanished, while villages that stood for generations have been erased from the map. What's left? Crumbling shorelines, salt water creeping into farmland, and families watching their ancestral land slip away. Even the vibrant coral reefs that once thrived here are under siege, bleaching and breaking apart, victims of a warming ocean. The Solomon Islands are proof that climate change isn't a distant threat. It's happening right now. Number 14, Seychelles. The Seychelles might be a dream destination, but rising seas are turning that dream into a slow-moving nightmare. This tropical paradise off the east coast of Africa is experiencing the most dramatic sea level rise in the past 6,000 years, according to a study in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. And with 85% of the country's development sitting right on the coast, the impact could be devastating. Even a 1-meter rise would wipe out 70% of its land, submerging entire villages, resorts, and critical infrastructure. Mangrove forests, natural barriers against coastal erosion, are disappearing. Coral reefs, once vibrant ecosystems teeming with life, are bleaching and breaking apart, offering less protection from surging waves. The government is scrambling to build seawalls and restore mangroves, but the ocean isn't waiting. If the worst predictions hold, the Seychelles could become one of the first luxury island destinations to be lost to climate change. Number 13, Kiribati. Kiribati isn't fighting to survive, it's planning for its own extinction. This remote island nation in the Central Pacific is barely 6 feet above sea level, and as ocean waters creep higher, the land is becoming unlivable. In 2012, the country's president took a drastic step, buying land in Fiji as a backup plan for when Kiribati is completely submerged. He didn't sugarcoat it. Moving won't be a matter of choice. It's going to be a matter of survival. Experts predict that by 2050, Kiribati will no longer be inhabitable. The freshwater supply is already contaminated by salt, entire coastlines are eroding, and frequent storms are flooding homes that used to be safe. It's not just the rising seas. The Pacific garbage patch has also turned parts of Kiribati's waters into a floating landfill. The country is facing a future where the ocean takes everything, and its people are forced to become some of the world's first climate refugees. Well, this is heartbreaking. Number 12, Tangier Island. You don't have to travel across the world to see an island disappearing. Just head to Virginia's Chesapeake Bay, where Tangier Island is vanishing before locals' eyes. If you don't believe it, just Google it. Once a thriving fishing community, more than 60% of the island has been lost to rising seas since 1850, and experts warn that in the next 25 to 50 years, it could be completely underwater. The people of Tangier aren't waiting for the government to save them. They've fought for years to build seawalls and secure federal funding for protection, but the fight is uphill, literally. The land here is sinking faster than almost anywhere in the US, and every major storm chips away at what remains. Bikes and golf carts still roll through Tangier's narrow streets, and locals still gather at the island's famous crab shacks. But unless something changes fast, future generations may only know this place through old photographs and history books. Number 11. French Polynesia. French Polynesia is home to some of the most iconic islands in the world, Bora Bora, Tahiti, and the Society Islands. But by the end of this century, 30% of them could be underwater. A study published in Nature Conservation warns that rising sea levels and eroding coastlines could force thousands of people to abandon their homes, turning these dream destinations into distant memories. Unlike other sinking nations, French Polynesia is considering a radical solution: floating islands. The government has been working on a project to build artificial floating land near Tahiti, hoping to create a sustainable refuge that could also attract tech companies and investors. It sounds futuristic, but when the alternative is losing entire islands, innovation becomes a necessity. For now, the white sand beaches and crystal clear waters remain as stunning as ever. But if sea levels continue rising at the current pace, one of the world's most sought-after vacation spots may soon be off the map. All right, now, let's talk about Number 10. Maldives. The Maldives is paradise on the brink of extinction. This postcard-perfect archipelago, home to over 1,000 tiny islands, luxury resorts, and even underwater hotels, is also the lowest-lying country on Earth. And that's a death sentence. With an average elevation of just 4 feet above sea level, the Maldives is teetering on the edge of disappearance. The World Bank warns that if current projections hold, the entire nation could be underwater by 2100. The country's former president knew the situation was dire, so much so that in 2009, he held a cabinet meeting underwater to send the world a message: if action isn't taken, the Maldives won't be here much longer. The signs are everywhere: shorelines shrinking, freshwater sources turning salty, and storm surges swallowing entire chunks of land. Tourists may still sip cocktails in overwater bungalows today, but in a few decades, those bungalows might be all that's left above water. Number 9. Palau. Palau is pretty famous for its crystal clear waters, vibrant marine life, and the legendary jellyfish lake, but all of it is at risk. Since 1993, sea levels here have been rising by 0.35 inches per year, almost 3 times the global average, and scientists predict an additional 24 inches by 2090. That might not sound like much, but for a nation made up of hundreds of low-lying islands, it's catastrophic. Locals are already seeing the changes. Some homes flood with saltwater during high tides. Gardens are turning barren as seawater seeps into the soil. And one of Palau's most famous attractions, the non-stinging golden jellyfish of Jellyfish Lake, is disappearing, likely due to rising ocean temperatures. Some Palauans are already considering leaving the country entirely, realizing that their homeland may not be livable in the coming decades. If the rising sea doesn't force them out, the devastation of the local ecosystem might. Number 8. Micronesia. Micronesia, a nation of 607 scattered islands in the Pacific, is slowly being erased by the ocean. It only has 270 square miles of land, yet even that is shrinking. In recent years, entire islands have disappeared while others are rapidly losing ground. The Journal of Coastal Conservation has documented the devastation. Rising sea levels, extreme erosion, and vanishing coastlines have already displaced communities. The problem isn't just the loss of land, It's the loss of everything that comes with it. Salt water is creeping into freshwater sources, making drinking water scarce. Farmland is turning into a wasteland, and once stable villages are being swallowed by the encroaching tides. Some islanders are already being forced to move to safer ground, but the reality is grim. There may not be any safe ground left in the coming decades. For a nation built on the ocean is now its greatest deadly threat. Number 7. Fiji. Well, who doesn't want to go there? Fiji, with its super lush jungles and amazing beaches, might seem like paradise, but it's fighting a battle it may not win. Rising sea levels have already forced entire villages to relocate. Vunidogoloa was the first, but it won't be the last. According to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Fiji's coastline has receded by up to 20 meters in some areas, and it's getting worse. By 2050, sea levels are expected to rise another 43 centimeters, putting even more communities at risk. But it's not just land that's vanishing. The coral reefs surrounding Fiji are also dying, bleached by rising ocean temperatures. Without reefs, coastal erosion accelerates, storms hit harder, and marine life dwindles. Fiji is fighting back, investing in seawalls and relocation programs, but the clock is ticking. In a few decades, some of its most beautiful islands may exist only in history books. Number 7. Marshall Islands. For generations, the Marshall Islands have been a place where the ocean gave life, providing food, culture, and identity. But now, the same ocean is slowly reclaiming the land. Sea levels are rising at twice the global average, about 7 millimeters per year, putting these remote atolls in serious danger. By 2030, water levels will be 7.5 inches higher, enough to flood homes, destroy freshwater supplies, and force entire villages to relocate. Already, storm surges are crashing further inland, and roads that once seemed permanent are now temporary. The government is fighting back with seawalls, but the reality is grim. The land is disappearing faster than they can save it, and within decades, many Marshallese could become climate refugees, forced to leave their ancestral home behind. The question is no longer if the islands will disappear, but when. Number 5. Shishmaref. In Shishmaref, a 650-person village perched on the edge of Alaska's Chukchi Sea, there is no debate about climate change. It's happening right now. Since 1997, over 100 feet of land has been swallowed by the ocean, and in the next 20 years, the entire island could be gone. Unlike most places on this list, Shishmaref isn't sinking, it's eroding. The permafrost beneath it, which once held the land together, is melting, leaving the soil soft and unstable. With each storm, waves tear away more of the coastline, forcing families to abandon their homes. In 2016, the village voted to relocate to the mainland. But there's one massive problem. There's no money to do it. So for now, the people of Shishmaref remain trapped between a rising sea and an impossible choice. Stay and watch their island disappear, or leave behind the only home they've ever known. Number 4. Torres Strait Islands. Scattered between Australia and Papua New Guinea, the Torres Strait Islands aren't just losing land, they're losing their heritage. Home to First Nations communities who have lived here for thousands of years, these islands are disappearing 3 times faster than the global average, with sea levels rising 6 to 8 millimeters per year. But it's not just the ocean creeping higher. The water itself is becoming more acidic, corroding coastal cliffs, killing marine life, and destroying the sacred mangroves that protect the islands. Some families are already leaving, their homes too vulnerable to remain. Local leaders are desperately fighting for government intervention, pushing for coastal defenses, stronger protections, and a climate response plan. But the reality is brutal. If nothing changes, Torres Strait Islanders may soon have to abandon their ancestral home. Number 3. The Philippines. The Philippines is home to 7,107 islands, but as climate change accelerates, many of them won't be here by the end of the century. A 2018 HSBC report ranked it as the most climate-vulnerable country in Asia, and the numbers paint a grim picture. Sea levels here are rising up to 18.5 inches by 2100. That's bad enough, but now add typhoons into the mix. Every year, the Philippines is battered by over 20 typhoons, and rising ocean temperatures are making them stronger. Coastal cities like Manila, Cebu, and Davao are at extreme risk, with millions of people in the flood zone. Unlike small island nations, the Philippines can't simply evacuate. Where would over 100 million people go? Instead, the government is pushing for low-carbon development and aggressive climate policies. But time is running out, and if the world doesn't act, entire islands, entire cities, and entire communities will be lost. Number 2. Cook Islands. Tucked away in the South Pacific, the Cook Islands are a laid-back paradise, often described as Hawaii 50 years ago. But the future isn't looking so nostalgic. Scientists predict that by 2090, sea levels could rise by up to 55 centimeters, which sounds small, until you realize that most of the country sits just a few feet above sea level. The impact? Flooded roads, crumbling bridges, disappearing beaches, and airports too waterlogged for planes to land. That's bad news for both the locals who rely on tourism and the thousands of travelers who dream of visiting. Coastal erosion is already eating away at beaches, while warming waters threaten the coral reefs that protect the islands from powerful storms. For now, the Cook Islands remain an untouched slice of heaven. But with the ocean creeping closer each year, paradise may not last forever. Number 1. Tuvalu. Tuvalu isn't just sinking, it's drowning. This tiny Pacific nation, home to just 10,000 people, is one of the most endangered places on Earth. At its highest point, Tuvalu is only 15 feet above sea level. And with the ocean rising faster every year, it won't take much for the waves to reclaim the land entirely. Tuvalu's prime minister has called climate change a threat to our very existence. The government has even explored the idea of buying land in another country, just in case they need to relocate the entire population. Imagine an entire nation becoming climate refugees, not because of war or disaster, but because their home was swallowed by the sea. The battle isn't just about keeping Tuvalu above water. It's about survival. The people of Tuvalu are watching their homeland disappear in real time, and unless something drastic changes, their nation could be the first to vanish completely. If you found this video interesting, please like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.